Dragons, but 3 copies of Jace Verdant's Prodigy on top of copies of Dragonlord Ojutai, Dragonlord Salumgar, and Slumgar the Drifting Death.
A Temple of Silence is where things will begin here for Erik Smith. Deidolori will take a draw step here. Dismal backwater for him, so Smith knows what he's up against, I think, right away now as Deidolori goes up to 21. Windswept Heath will be sacrificed. Smith will fall down to 19. There is a basic forest. See what the turn 2 play is here for Smith. It's just a face-up Den Protector. Got to get started somewhere.
Exactly. We saw, if you take away any lesson from the match that we just saw between Ross Meerman and Gerard Fabiano, it's game 1 with the dead removal spells, knobs on aggro's deck. Even if they generate a lot of card advantage, there's no guarantee they're going to be able to win the long game because Esper Dragons, Blue-Black Control, they just have more powerful haymakers when you get later on in the game. Important just to get on the table and start attacking.
And there for 2 with a Den Protector, a Windswept Heath, and a passing of the turn there for Deidolori. Polluted Delta from Deidolori, and he'll just simply pass the turn back over to Smith. Smith with a Plains. And we'll see what's next here for Erik. He'll play an Abzan Charm, looking to get some cards, I assume. And that's exactly what the former Invitational Champion will do. So Anafenza and Abzan Charm are the draws. And Bile Blight will take care of the Den Protector while Smith is tapped out. Hangerback Walker the draw here for Erik Smith. Perhaps it's time to play that for 2, but he'll go with a Siege Rhino.
And a really good Den Protector there for Smith. Got him for 2 points of damage, traded with a Bile Blight.
Yeah, can't be too upset with that, right?
Good exchange.
Deidolori does have a land to play there in Caves of Koilos. That's the land he will play. See if he has an answer to the Rhino. For now, he'll just pass the turn back over to Smith. Smith will draw. In comes Siege. Rhino Hero's Downfall is going to take care of that. Shields are down here for Smith to resolve whatever he'd like. There's an Anafenza. Pass the turn back. Will Smith over to Deidolori. Deidolori with a Jace. Not a card we see a lot of in Esper Dragons. They try to stay creatureless for the most part outside of the dragon cards. However, here is Jace.
Deidolori does have a lot of high-impact cards to flash back, though. His deck is much more about controlling the board, not a lot of counter spells. The 4 copies of Slumgar Scorn and only 2 copies of Dissolve, but Bile Blight, Crux of Fate, Hero's Downfall, Foul Tongue Invocation, Thoughtseize, a lot of really powerful cards to flash back with Jace.
And Anafenza comes across for 4 points of damage. Deidolori will have to take that, fall to 12. No, just pass the turn back. Temple of Enlightenment there in Deidolori's hand. That'll be the land for the turn. Time to scry here for Mike. Top card will go to the bottom. He has been a bit behind the entire game, looking to catch up and eventually turn the corner, but for now, he'll just have to pass the turn back. So we'll see what Smith has here on the end step. As keep in mind, he elected not to play a spell.
Probably represents a creature removal spell, maybe knobs on charge, draw some cards.
Looks like he's going to go with Hero's Downfall. He'll have to take 1 to cast it. We'll see if this resolves or if Deidolori has a response. Does have an active Jace out there. Going to start, it looks like, by activating Jace. And discard Dig Through Time.
This is a little bit under the gun.
Yeah.
Could also have a second Dig Through Time in hand.
Here comes Anafenza again. Deidolori going to fall to 4. Now, one thing to keep in mind, that Jace no longer in the graveyard because of Anafenza, so we'll have that exiled. And the graveyard count certainly does matter here.
Especially if there's a second Dig Through Time in hand.
Oh, yeah. That is a very big deal. Now, here's Fleecemane Lion. Smith hoping that this will resolve. You see his hand here, Den Protector, Hanger Back Walker, which he has just cast, Obzon Charm, and maybe the big payoff there in Wingmate Rock. I agree it's not particularly good in this matchup, but could be a payoff card in this particular game.
Well, this is a great setup here for Smith because he is a little bit exposed to a sweeper right now, deploying the second threat in Fleece Main line. So by playing Hangerback Walker, what this means is if Deidolori untaps and hits Smith with a sweeper, Erik has a creature left over, the 1/1 Thopter. He can then untap, attack, and raid a Wingmate Rock.
Yep.
So a very good hedge against a sweeper here. And if Deidolori is just on spot removal spells, well, now Erik has 3 threats in play against opponent with 5 mana and no ability right now seemingly to answer.
Dig through time here from Deidolori. He's found 2 cards that he's happy with. Other 5 will go to the bottom. 1 card in his graveyard now is the Resolve Dig. So we'll see if Deidolori can find some resources to get out of this sticky situation. He's at 7, facing down lethal next turn. Dragonlord Ojutai in hand, but Dragonlord Ojutai might not be the kind of card that can stabilize his board.
Nope. I mean, next turn, Smith gets to make a very nice attack with Anafenza and Fleece Main Lion, with which he can go monstrous. Dragonlord Ojutai, very good on stable boards, but this board is not that.
Hero's Downfall in Deidolori's hand at this point. The question is, does he have enough time and mana to get all of the resources out of his hand?
Another concern is how much black mana does he have. He only has 3 in play, and a lot of the removal spells in his deck are double black. So even if he has 2 Heroes Downfalls, for example, he can't cast them all.
And there's no Urborg on the other side of the table.
But that play from Smith last turn was very, very good.
Yeah. There's a Hero's Downfall to take care of the Fleece Main Line.
Took advantage of his resources in such a way that in even the worst case scenario of a sweeper, he would still have some gas left in the tank. And he's clearly good against no sweeper, as he still has multiple threats in play attacking for close to lethal.
And there's an attack for 6. Deidolori is going to fall down to 1, so that Flooded Strand, well, that's off the table now. Deidolori will take a draw. Picked up a copy of Dragonlord Salumgar, but not going to be able to use that one. Erik Smith going to win game number 1 here over Mike Deidolori. Obzon Aggro up a game over Esper Dragons very quickly here. That's exactly how Smith wants those games to go, because he didn't draw a lot of his dead cards that game, so that means he can get the dead cards out and the good cards in.
Yeah, that's a big, big win there for Smith game number 1. Very well navigated, too. I think that previous turn with the Fleece Main Line and the Hangerback Walker set Smith up in such a way where he could beat a sweeper potentially. Maybe he couldn't beat 2 sweepers, but could beat 1, and certainly could beat spot removal. All Deidolori had was spot removal, and Smith won pretty comfortably.
Time to take a look at the sideboards here. We will start with Mike Deidolori and his Esper Dragons deck. What's he got to turn around this matchup?
Another copy of Ashiok, 2 copies of Foul Tongue Invocation, a Perilous Vault, a Stratus Dancer, a Dragonlord's Prerogative, a Languish, a Dragonlord Salumgar, a Thoughtseize, an Ultimate Price, an Orb of Warding, 2 Disdainful Strokes, 2 Drowned Sorrows. I think we're going to see pretty similar sideboarding here to what Fabiano did. We're going to see the additional copies of Foul Tongue Invitation come in, the Perilous Vault, the Languish, the Dragonlord Salumgar, the additional copy of Ashiok, and maybe a Thoughtseize as well.
For Erik Smith, 2 Elspeth Sun's Champion, 2 Self-Inflicted Wound, 2 Herald of Torment, 3 Tragic Arrogance, 3 Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Duress, and an Ultimate Price.
So we get the easy swap here of the 3 Jermoka's commands and the 2 copies of Ultimate Price coming out for the 5 discard spells and Thoughtseize and Duress. Herald of Torment and Elspeth Sun's Champion are both reasonable cards, and he has 2 copies of Hero's Downfall in his deck, which are not great, so he might sideboard more heavily than that. But at the minimum, the 3 copies of Thoughtseize and the 2 copies of Duress are coming in here.
A lot of good options here for both players, it seems.
Yes.
Not too surprising here. These 2 decks can get pretty flexible at times, so we'll see how each player likes to sideboard. They're about ready for game number 2, but we got to talk about Grand Prix Atlanta. We got to talk about the big Grand Prix where the details have been announced for November 13th through the 15th. Got an awesome playmat here, of course, but a little Commander feel this go around.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of Commander events, a lot of the celebrities of the Commander community, like Sheldon Menery, like MJ Scott. They're going to be there for panels, for cosplay, the whole shebang. You can go over StarCityGames.com/GP Atlanta, get more information. Use the hashtag GP Atlanta while searching for information or posting about the event. Again, this is going to be Battle for Zendikar Sealed, November 13th through 15th. In Atlanta, Georgia. We're looking forward to that show. We're expecting a fantastic turnout. As Patrick did mention, Betty Smith, MJ Scott, Sheldon Menery, the Commander versus Superstars as well. And heck, we'll even be there doing coverage and a meet and greet with you guys
on Friday from 5 to 7 p.m. Looking forward to everything that's taking place. You guys know how Star City Games does Grand Prix. We're looking to blow it out November 13th through the 15th as we do get ready here for game number 2 between Erik Smith and Mike Deidolori. Abzan Aggro Esper Dragons. Deidolori will be on the play here for game number 2 with the control strategy. Much better deck on the play than the draw, of course, but I think you can say that just about every deck here in Standard. Curious to see what these Dragons decks will look like post-rotation, because we're going to keep a lot of the powerful cards, Slumgar, Scorn, Foul-Tongue Invocation, Dragonlord Ochitai, Dragonlord Slumgar, all of that stuff.
I think the deck still stays intact. A lot of the same cards are there. The loss of Dissolve is tough, but this deck is more about removal and less about counter spells than a lot of classic blue-black and blue-white control lists. I think Ruinous Path is a lot worse for this deck than Hero's Downfall because
yeah,
you want everything to be an instant once you have counter spells in your deck for maximum flexibility.
Yep. Not to say it's bad or anything, but it's just nowhere near as good as Hero's Downfall.
Right.
Sandstorm Citadel to start here for Smith. Deidolori has a Temple of Deceit. There's a Swamp here for Mike. And now a Jace. So a good early start for him. You have to imagine most of Smith's cheap removals out of the deck.
Yes. And cards like Jace put Smith in a bit of a squeeze here because he doesn't want to leave in a bunch of Ultimate Price and Hero's Downfall type of cards, but Jace uncontested is very, very powerful.
Yep.
And it's tough to sideboard when your opponent has that kind of flexibility.
Here's a Jace activation. Time to draw and discard here for Deidolori. Get working on that graveyard to flip that Jace. There goes Dismal Backwater. There's a Temple of Enlightenment. Time for Deidolori to scry. Top card becomes the bottom card. Pass a turn back. Smith will draw. Llanowar Waste. In comes Fleecemane Lion. Deidolori will fall to 17. And now a Thoughtseize. Get an idea of what Deidolori is working with. He's got a Disdainful Stroke, a Dragonlord Ochitai, and just a couple of lands there, included Delta and Dismal Backwater.
Hand is a bit of a mess here for Deidolori.
It really is.
Without the Disdainful Stroke, which Smith can take, Deidolori very vulnerable to just getting hit by a chain of Siege Rhinos. And without the Dragonlord Ochitai, his hand doesn't really play towards anything.
Now here's Hangerback Walker. Great start here for Smith. See if Jace can catch Deidolori back up here, however. The draw. It's a dig through time.
It's a good one to get here. He can loot, that's card number 3. He's got a Polluted Delta, that's card number 4. 4 mana in play, he can dig through time.
Here's an activation. A Flood Strand is what he's picked up. Time to discard. Beatdown time. Just Fleecemane Lion. Kind of hold steady with Hangerback Walker. Leads me to believe that Smith wants to grow it up a little bit.
Well, he had 2 different paths he can take right there. He can hang back with the Walker, pump that up, and say go. Or he could play one of his 4 mana spells into the Disdainful Stroke, which he knows about, but at least he gets the Disdainful Stroke out of Deidolori's hand. Because Smith has Abzan Charm in his hand, he doesn't have to play a Disdainful Stroke this turn. He can simply grow Hangerback Walker and draw 2 cards. And that's probably more efficient than running a Siege Rhino into a copy of Disdainful Stroke.
Dig through time here for Deidolori. He needs some help. Also, Dragonlord Ochitai with Thoughtseize is under the gun here from Fleecemane Lion and Hangerback Walker. It's got Jace going, but he also just removed most of the graveyard for Jace. So
yep, he's gonna have to restart. Now, the graveyard didn't matter all that much because Deidolori didn't have anything good to flash back, but Jace is just going to be on Merfolk looter duty for a little while, most likely. Deidolori would like to get that flipped as soon as possible, start flashing back cards like Hero's Downfall, Crux of Fate, and what have you, if you can get there.
Tough spot here. But dig through time is very powerful, so it's done resolving. Smith will take the opportunity now, while Deidolori is tapped out, to grow Hangerback Walker, sacrifice the fetch land, perhaps a Hero's Downfall on Jace, too. We'll see.
I think we might see an Abzan Charm resolved right now.
Okay. Looks like a little bit of shortcutting taking place, as Deidolori is already untapped and drawn his card for the turn. So we'll see if Smith announced anything. It doesn't look like he did. He just wanted to sacrifice the fetch land now. Deidolori will activate Jace yet again. Polluted Delta the draw. You see he's got a Hero's Downfall in hand. Still has that Disdainful Stroke. So some powerful cards going on there if they line up appropriately.
Hands improving. Jace tends to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Caves the discard, Dismal Backwater the land. Deidolori will gain a life, of course. And Deidolori will pass the turn back. Here's Obzon Charm. Smith will pay 2 to draw 2. Obzon Charm, Den Protector the draws.
Really good set of cards here, playing for a long game.
Hero's Downfall going to take care of Fleece Mainline while Smith is tapped out. Smart play there by Deidolori.
Well, this does give a window for Smith to hammer in with a 4-mana spell.
This is
because
true.
The shields are down, Disdainful Stroke.
There's that 4-mana spell.
Good play here by Smith. Takes his window to get a 4-mana spell into play.
Back over to Deidolori we go. He'll sacrifice a Polluted Delta.
And I think Deidolori is trying to set up a line of play. That Delta is now card number 4. Jace can flip for card number 5. That allows him to flash back a Hero's Downfall on the Rhino. That does leave Jace vulnerable to being attacked down by Hangerback Walker, but it's at least something.
Yep. The Telepath Unbound has arrived. Starts on 5 counters, of course. Gonna slow down the old Rhino here. Now there's Salumgar. Okay. We're working towards something.
Well, this is a much better line of play than just having the Jace die by flashing back the Hero's Downfall.
I gotta say, and we've talked about this a little bit over the course of this weekend, how impressive has Salumgar been?
It's been very, very good.
I have really been impressed with that card.
An excellent answer to Hangerback Walker. And Slumgar was part of deck's various control strategies well before Hangerback Walker was part of the mix. So
Absolutely.
it's not like this is totally new territory, but it's been great.
Here's Duress. There goes Dig Through Time. Gonna leave Deidolori with just a Disdainful Stroke.
And I think that Smith has the opportunity to go a little bit wide here. He can hammer Deidolori with another Rhino here. And if Deidolori leaves up Disdainful Stroke, he's got Obzon Charm and Den Protector to spend his mana on for a little while.
Okay.
So Smith is very well set up here. Now, things can go really wrong. Crux of Fate rolls off the top of the deck, and Smith's in a lot of trouble. But
It's really bad news then.
given what he knows about, Smith's in a pretty good spot.
Foul Tongue Invocation, I believe, the draw. Not great.
Well, it's not that bad because Deidolori can get rid of the Hangerback Walker. Well, one assumes Smith will sacrifice the Hangerback Walker.
Yeah.
Deidolori can then attack with Slumgar, get rid of the Thopters. And he's got Jace available to flash back either Hero's Downfall or Foul Tongue Invocation as appropriate. If he flashes back the Foul Tongue Invocation, we're talking about 3 life along the way too. So, or excuse me, 8 life along the way too if he casts it twice.
Looks like flashing back a Dig Through Time is Deidolori. He's just never been able to get ahead in these games.
Yeah.
That's been the issue for him so far.
The concern I have about this line of play, getting back to Dig Through Time here,
Okay.
is Deidolori's potentially looking at a really big attack next turn. And he only has access to Foul Tongue Invocation, which doesn't do anything about the Siege Rhinos.
Just going to pass the turn back over to Smith. Smith will draw. Smith's just going to shrug their shoulders, come on in here. Dare him to have something. Smith's got some pretty good insurance in hand, too, with a card like Obzon Charm.
Yep.
Can probably get over these last points of damage. Dent Protector is going to be pretty redundant. Here's Foul Tongue Invocation. This will allow Deidolori to gain some life here. So this is where things will start. Before blocks, Foul Tongue Invocation here by Deidolori. Smith will sacrifice the Hanger Backwalker. Deidolori will go up to 9. Siege Rhino will get blocked. The other one will come through. So Deidolori is going to fall back to 5.
And now this is another window where Smith can resolve a 4-mana spell like Sorin, where Disdainful Stroke is not available. And if Deidolori untaps and leaves up 2 mana, Smith again has a bunch of 3-mana plays to work with.
Yep. He's had him in the squeeze the entire time. And I kind of like taking the opportunity to resolve Sorin if you can.
The issue is it might be the lowest impact card in his hand. He might be better served with Den Protector or Anafenza being on the board next turn than Sorin.
Looks like he's going to go with Anafenza. Pass the turn back.
And I think Smith just senses some vulnerability on Deidolori's side of the table and is trying to get the game over with.
Feels like Deidolori might just be barely hanging on. However, Crux of Fate in hand might really change some things here.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
That is very bad news for Smith.
Non-dragons bite the dust. And now Salumgar coming in. We're getting a little offensive.
And Crux of Fate in the graveyard ready to come back.
Very true. Oddly enough, we've seen, cards like End Hostilities and Languish. I think maybe some have forgotten about Crux of Fate.
And I think that Deidolori is on 0 copies of Languish in his main deck. He's got 1 in the sideboard. So this
Notable.
is just a Crux of Fate deck.
Now the mana is still down from Disdainful Stroke. Talking about cards when you flash back, Crux of Fate is 1, Foul Tongue Invocation is another.
Yeah.
Pretty good right now. Smith might be thinking Sorin. Looks like he's thinking Dent Protector face down on Megamorph a little bit later. Deidolori will take a draw. Picked up a copy of Hero's Downfall.
And the leftovers in Deidolori's hand are no joke.
They are pretty good. Nothing to be upset about. Looks like Jace is going to go down. And a flashback Foul Tongue Invocation, get some life. Dent Protector will be on Megamorph. We'll see what Smith wants to return, however. I think that's the harder part here.
Well, it almost has to be a 3-mana spell at this point because Disdainful Stroke is a concern.
Very true. Looks like he's going to go Duress. Try to clear the path for something.
Yep.
Here comes Salumgar. Now here's Duress. Disdainful Stroke, Bioblight, Hero's Downfall, Dragonlord Ochitai. You weren't kidding about those leftovers. Those are tough leftovers to beat. Jeez.
And the problem is that if Smith goes for some sort of slow value game, then Dragonlord Ochitai is going to be really hard to beat. If he tries to play fast, he's playing against a lot of removal.
There's Bioblight. Unmorph Dent Protector again. Does getting back Duress get you anywhere?
I don't think so. He's going to have to beat the board next turn because I would imagine Deidolori's plan here is to cast Dragonlord Ochitai.
Make a lethal attack the next turn.
And lock out all 2-toughness creatures out of Smith's deck as well.
All right, get back a Rhino. Jace moving up. Slumgar coming in. There's Dragonlord Ochitai. Yeah, I guess that's the one thing maybe you forget about with with Salumgar, is that when a dragon attacks.
Right, it stacks up.
Yeah. Doesn't show up often, but when it does, it's quite good. Here's a Siege Rhino. That's going to resolve. So Deidolori 2 turns away from lethal, and I think Smith may have drawn another Siege Rhino. Yeah, he's got one in his hand, so gets a little bit interesting here.
Well, Deidolori still with a downfall.
Well, I certainly think that Mike is in a good spot, and I like attacking here with both creatures. Going to trigger Dragon Lord Ojutai. Take a look at the top couple of cards, and a card like Slumgar Scorn will be lights out here. You see the one Languish that he's looking at. That's from the sideboard.
So I guess a Rhino trigger gets Smith up to 9, meaning the 2 dragons aren't lethal.
Dismal Backwater brings Deidolori up to 7, though.
So now back-to-back Rhinos is no longer lethal. And Chase is going up to 3, meaning that he's got a removal spell at the ready. I think we'll be going to game 3 in a moment.
I think so. There's Rhino. Smith will gain some. Deidolori will lose some. 9-4. Smith is hoping that Deidolori doesn't have much. Ultimate Price the draw. Yuck. Maybe not. Might slow up a little bit. All right, here he comes with both. Slumgar Scorn, Foul Tongue Invocation.
I think the Foul Tongue is now going to be too much to beat. The counterspell is very good as well.
I think the counterspell, yeah. I honestly think either one is probably too much to beat. Jace is going to get cashed in. Hero's Downfall will take care of the Siege Rhino. One thing Deidolori could have done, he could have done with Bioblight.
Yep.
Because of the Slumgar triggers. Not sure if he knew that or not.
Maybe he doesn't want to have to worry about a random pump spell like Gather Courage being a factor. It's just safer this way.
Yeah, Den Protector attempting to be more. Slumgar Scorn will take care of that. And we get ready here for game number 3 as Mike Deidolori able to tie it up against Eric Smith. As for Dragons, Abzan Aggro, they're throwing haymakers at each other, but Deidolori was able to walk out of that one alive.
And this is, you're seeing a lot of the same stuff that you saw in the Miriam versus Fabiano match, where because Abzan Aggro is capable of drawing so many cards between Abzan Charm and Den Protector, it's very hard for decks like Esper Dragons to hold them off just by countering and removing stuff. Abzan Aggro is going to look at too many cards. So the real recipe is for these control decks to hold off long enough to resolve some large proactive threat that invalidates a lot of what's going on the aggro side of the table. So Dragon Lord Ojutai, Slumgar, the Drifting Death, threats like that, Ugin that we saw on Fabiano's list, those are very important to shut the door and invalidate all the extra cards the Abzan Aggro deck looks at over the course of the game.
That's what Abzan Aggro is all about.
Yes, it can hold off, it can play against Heroes Downfalls and Dissolves for a while. You look at a lot of cards, but cards like Dragon Lord Slumgar are often worth several cards out of the aggro deck. They're very hard to answer, and I think those are the critical pieces of eventually winning the game.
I think that's some of the appeal of playing a deck like this, is that it's called Abzan Aggro, but it's a 26 land aggressive deck that can go really long with you.
Yeah, Hangerback Walker, Den Protector, Abzan Charm gives you a lot of staying power. The Planeswalkers as well help a lot with that.
These players will shuffle up here for game number 3. About 20 minutes left to go in the match here. We'll see Eric Smith on the play. We're going to talk about SCG Game Night, the very popular promotion. You see the Krakens on our lapels this weekend, as it is September after all, but we've got some new stuff coming in both October and November.
Yeah, we send out these kits every month with a new pin and a new foil card. Stores can run Game Night however they want to, whatever format, sanctioned or unsanctioned, just get players in your store for some fun and friendly magic. This is the September kit that's available right now if you play at a game night. Coming down the pipeline here in October, we have the Hippo. If you want to get signed up for the November kit, which we have here, the Otter, head over to StarCityGames.com/game night, get more information about the event that way, and contact your Star City Games in-store play representative if you want to bring game night to your store.
Otter Von B.
Hanging out.
That's my dude.
There he is.
Look, I know I fought really hard for the Hippo, as did you, but Otter Von B is pretty sweet.
He's ready to go.
I'm just saying, that's all.
Hanging out under the sea.
That fish is in a lot of trouble. I don't care what you say. That fish is in a lot of trouble.
I can't wait to get the wide shot at this one.
The playmat?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a bunch of otters just in the background cheering the otters along. Anything could happen. StarCityGames.com/game night. More information. Game number 3 here between Eric Smith, Mike Deidolori, about to be underway here. Both these players still very much in top 8 contention. Eric Smith wins this match. He's going to lock it up. He'll be 12-1 with only 2 rounds left to go, so nothing could go wrong for him. The former Invitational champion and two-time Invitational top 8 competitor is happy with his opening hand, so we'll start with the Temple of Silence. Temple of Deceit there for Deidolori. We go back Smith's way. He does have a duress. The question is, does he have a creature to play early? He does have a Den Protector he can play face up. We saw that in game 1. But he's going to play it just to Sansom Citadel, not even fire off the duress, just pass back.
Yeah, I think he wants to save the duress for a spot where he's setting up multiple plays in a turn. Don't want to just fire that off and have Deidolori draw a premium spell that you can't touch.
Sure. There's Fleecemane Lion. Here's Temple. Take a look at that top card. See where that's going to go. Looks like it's headed to the bottom. Deidolori will draw. There's a Flooded Strand. Here comes Fleecemane. Deidolori going to take that 3, fall to 17. Here's duress. Now I think we'll see a little bit of action here.
Very strong opening here for Smith. He's got a clock in play, has a duress, Den Protector in hand ready to get back duress.
Going to search up an island. Notable that he's searching up an island, not a plains there. Though it appears no basic plains in the deck list.
0.
Little surprising.
Right, this is a 2.5 color deck. You're touching white for Dragonlord Ojutai and some sideboard cards. You would assume that there would be 1 plains in the deck to go get in spots like this.
I think it's a safe assumption. I mean, that's why I'm surprised there a little bit. But Foul-Tongue Invocation, Dissolve, Slumgar Scorn, Ugin, a lot going on there. Foul-Tongue Invitation, of course, cast to take care of Fleecemane Lion. But here you see the options here for Smith with his duress.
A soft hand.
It is pretty soft, yeah. Not too surprised to see him take Dissolve, especially with Slumgar Scorn in hand and there's no dragon. Now here's a Morph, it's the Den Protector. So this is something that Smith can really take advantage of.
And for Deidolori, very important to draw a removal spell now. Otherwise, this unmorphs next turn. Another duress hits him. And he's behind on a lot of different fronts.
It wasn't a removal spell, but it was a dragon to go along with the Slumgar Scorn. It was a copy of Slumgar the Drifting Death. So that's not so bad.
Yeah.
See what Smith wants to do now. I'm going to start by attacking for 2. I think that's the easy part. And now there's a Fleecemane Lion. Might be time for that Scorn, yeah. I think you got to use it when you can.
Exactly. He knows that Smith has the availability to Den Protector back at duress. It's the only spell in Deidolori's hand, and he needs time. So all of these are compelling arguments to just go ahead and counter the Fleecemane Lion.
Yeah. There's Ashiok. A couple of creatures that'll hit there, Fleecemane Lion and Hangerback Walker. Dismal Backwater will gain Deidolori a life, and we're going to head back Smith's way. He'll take a draw step here. I believe Self-Inflicted Wound is what he's found. A little awkward right now.
Yeah, he needs to give himself some answers to Dragonlord Ojutai.
Absolutely.
But, you know, we now hit a point where his hand is going to get frozen up, most likely by the Dragonlord Slumgar that's coming next turn. Even if he casts Siege Rhino, he's not in a position to attack the following turn. And Ashiok is threatening to do stuff too.
There's Siege Rhino. And you saw Smith come across in the red zone right to Deidolori. So he said, I'm going to ignore Ashiok. I'll pass the turn back, play a Rhino. Looks like he's going to try to get Deidolori dead and not worry too much about Ashiok. Risky business.
Well, there's no alternate line of play. You knock the Ashiok down to 3. He can still get back the Fleecemane Lion if he wants it. So you're not accomplishing very much there. You want to get in your points because you're following up with Siege Rhino. That's a couple more points of damage.
The Fleecemane Lion coming on back. There's the Haven. Here's Slumgar. And again, Slumgar continues to look impressive. So much toughness, keywords matter. A lot to like about this dragon. There's a Forest.
Honestly, Smith may need to do something like cast self-inflicted wound and alpha strike.
Just to get the Fleeceman line off the board and try to get some damage
He
through.
gets him down to 9. Let's assume that he blocks the Den Protector. Then he's down to 5. There's some hope you might be able to close the game out.
It sounds like to me, at least, that is it time to maybe take a drastic measure like that, kind of panic a little bit?
The other line of play here, I'm not sure what the other line of play is. The other thing that Smith gets if he makes an alpha strike this turn is if you assume Deidolori is going to block your Den Protector, you get to unmorph and get back the duress. You duress away the Ugin, and now your board is Siege Rhino against Slumgar. Deidolori's at 5. It's not going great, but you're not done by any means.
Looks like we're going to have Hero. I thought we might have Hero's Downfall, but it looks like we're going to have a Morph instead. Pass the turn back. We know Deidolori's hand. Ugin is the big one. Ashok's going to move up. Thoughtseize and Offenza. Sansep Citadel.
So this line of play from Smith is also, I think, totally reasonable. He's still setting himself up for a good alpha strike next turn if he wants it.
Okay.
And he's more mana efficient.
Time to draw. Keep in mind, Smith does have a Hero's Downfall in hand. Gonna unmorph Den Protector, it appears.
Yeah, I think this is on Morph, Den Protector, get back to rest, take care of the Ugin.
Also get an idea of what you're playing against, too,
Yep.
which is right now nothing. There's just Nerd board.
Yep, unmorph the other Den Protector, get back, whatever. I suppose self-inflicted wound to cut Deidolori off of being able to Ashiok back the Anafenza.
There's no attack there at all. Maybe that's a little surprising. There's her board. Here comes Anafenza.
Oh, this sets up Smith beautifully here because now he can get back the self-inflicted wound if he wants it.
Kill that, put him down to 7, and then it's a lethal attack.
Yeah, this is a great setup here. Unless Deidolori drew something very good, and I think.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
Drew a counterspell.
Yes, he did. Now that said, you can still Hero's Downfall here and try to push through some damage. And Smith does have a Siege Rhino in hand, so it would cause Deidolori to have to top deck again.
Yes. And top deck in a big way because he's got to be able to beat the Siege Rhino in hand plus the board.
Correct.
Not an easy thing to do.
Now, Deidolori doesn't know about that Siege Rhino, but when you're playing against Abzan, that's always in the back of your mind. When my opponent's making an attack like this, which isn't lethal, he's going to lose something. It's a tough block here for Michael.
Yeah, it has to be something like dig into Scorn plus Languish to get out of this. Asking a lot.
Going to cash in the Haven, get back the Ugin in case he draws a land here. The problem is the Siege Rhino. It wasn't a land, it was a copy of Bile Blight, which actually in most situations would be okay.
Yeah, from where Deidolori is sitting, Bile Blight looks good.
Yep.
We know it's not because of Siege Rhino.
Here is Bile Blight. And Smith knows the card in his hand, so he can untap very quickly, draw, play that Rhino, and that is going to do it. Erik Smith is going to win this match over Mike Deidolori. 2-1. Abzan Aggro will take care of Esper Dragons, and for Erik Smith, the former Invitational champion, also top 8 at our Season 3 Invitational in New Jersey a couple weeks ago, we got one player elimination rounds right now, and it is that Abzan Aggro player.
Yeah, that was a very well-played Game 3 over there. I may have been slightly more aggressive than Erik was in a couple of those spots. I was a little apprehensive about building up the board there in the face of a deck with Crux of Fate and so forth, maybe to try to get a couple points of damage. That said, Smith definitely had a plan for how he wanted to navigate those couple of turns there, was effective in being aggressive, used all of his mana, identified what Deidolori's house was, did his best to mitigate it in the event that Deidolori drew them. Very, very well-played game.
Well, congratulations, Erik Smith. Not surprising to see a former Invitational champion.